Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Hi. Hello. Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay.
All right. Let me just get this off, people. Good evening. Good evening. There's 21 of you, and I appreciate you because we are in the midst of a heat wave, and I thought everybody would be out at a barbecue. Actually, I came back from a barbecue about an hour ago. So let's do a quick test. Can everyone hear me okay? Let's just have a little bit of a test on the audio here, please, guys. Let me know if you can hear me okay. That would be really appreciated. Thank you. Um, t- awesome. Right, we've got some yeses. So, all right. This topic is an unusual topic for the channel, but it is one that I've tried to. I've covered it on the podcast maybe like 3 weeks ago, and it was a really interesting topic. So much to talk about, and I think if you follow a little bit of the content on YouTube like I do, and maybe TikTok and some of the all these other social media platforms. Money in relationships, money in dating becomes it's a popular topic right now. None less because there is a gentleman who I've been mistaken for called Kevin Samuels. Let me just get this. I've had to swap over my camera, guys. So bear with me 1 second. So called Kevin Samuels, who is very controversial in the topic of money and relationships. We're not going to go down that part today, but what I am going to do is I'm going to have a dating expert, dating coach, who was on the podcast 3 weeks ago. Just talk about money relationships because it is an important thing. Money means so much to many people, and it dictates so many facets of our day-to-day kind of like life, our aspirations, our goals, what property we end up buying, how quickly we're able to get on the property ladder, whether we're able to retire comfortably, all of these things, right? But when it comes to relationships, how do you bridge the gap of communication to ensure that in your relationship everybody's on the same page, it's healthy, and it's not a topic of contention like it seems to be right now on social media for some reason. So I have the pleasure in welcoming Justine Mfulama to the show. I'm going to bring her in a moment. She's also here on YouTube as well. So if you can, guys, go and follow her, and yeah, go and subscribe and listen to some of the content as well. But I'm going to bring her in right now, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to the group. Right, let's have a look and see if this
Hello.
is.
Oh,
There we go.
perfect.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm not bad. So, how are things out in Mexico? Things still okay?
They're really good. I mean, I'm jealous because you guys have a heat wave. I didn't know that. I knew
Yeah.
that London has been hot. I saw this on a lot of my friends' stories,
Uh
but
huh.
it's not hot here.
It's not.
Which is weird because people always think Mexico, all over Mexico is always hot, but no, it's not hot where I am.
Yeah, I'm not normally doing live t-shirt live streams in a t-shirt like this. I am sweating, right? It's so hot. I've got a fan right
Yeah.
here, but if I turn it on, people are going to hear it on the audio. So I've just got to. It's
Right.
gonna be it's gonna be a sauna in here in about 15 minutes or so. So if I get
Yeah.
sweaty, guys, it's not my fault. It's the weather. Blame it on that. But why don't you introduce yourself, Justine?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Justine Mfulama. I'm a dating and relationship blogger and coach, and I have been dabbling in the industry for about 4 years now. Yeah, 4 years. I started with a blog, very personal about my dating struggles, and it evolved into a full blown advice blog where I help women, especially women that are faith based, find their way around in the dating community, understand men better, understand themselves better, and then because of that, call in the person they want to spend their life with.
Awesome. So you mentioned something there that I think is really important. Maybe that could be a place to kick this off. You said
Hmm.
understand men better. Obviously,
Yeah.
men always try to understand women.
Hmm.
What's your finding of that? Are men that complicated? How do you ladies see it?
Okay, so here's the thing. I think men are not that complicated, but I do think that we make it harder than it is because we don't show up as our true selves a lot of times. I think both genders can be really easy
Hmm.
if we wouldn't play games, if we wouldn't try to hide our fears, insecurities, and try to show up as somebody who knows it all rather than as the person that we are.
Mm. I think that's really true. I mean, I guess people have different experiences of this, but I think there's always that theme of we try to understand each other. And I think
Yeah.
certainly from a man's point of view, a lot of the time we approach dating and certainly money with bravado. Like we've got
Mhm.
egos to protect and images to
Right.
project. And oftentimes in the dating scene, I mean, I'm not single. I haven't been single for years. But in the dating scene, I've certainly
Mhm.
seen it work. Dude, like we need to appear to be at this level, even if we're not. And then the whole fake it till you make it kind of thing comes into play, and it becomes very,
Exactly.
very interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, especially when it comes to money and relationships. And we discussed it the last time, right? The idea of status and what you bring to the table has been kind of like distorted in the last few years, so much so that people try to, yeah, really project an image that isn't true to who they are. So now they are misaligned in their relationships because one person is going for something that the other person can't provide.
Mm. Do you think it's important? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway because I'd love to get your insight into this. How
Mhm.
important do you think it is to be really honest with those kind of things? Because this will be a double-barreled question and may go down a conversation path that I think, from a man's point of view,
Mhm.
will be interesting to hear. But from a certainly from your point of view, working in the space and working with people in the dating scene, how
Mhm.
important is honesty in that picture?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think honesty and vulnerability goes hand in hand, and without one, you can't really make the relationship last. You can start a relationship, you can date superficially, but when it comes to truly understanding the other person, you have to be honest about what goes on in your mind about the relationship and about money because it will affect how you relate to each other sooner
Mm,
or later. And I think we are so quickly to feel ashamed about our finances, right? I used to struggle with it a lot. You feel very ashamed about your finances. You don't speak it out, but yet the way you subconsciously communicate and your body language, all these things play a role
mm,
once
mm.
you are in a relationship because you will get triggered.
Yeah. I look at this from a maybe an interesting point angle now because of I obviously work in financial service and stuff, but I think sometimes, and I talk about this when I do coaching for couples, right? I talk about, at some point you're going to want to buy your first home, you want to get on the
Right.
property ladder, you're going to make that plan together. But
Mhm.
sometimes what I find is that because we're not able to communicate or talk about money in a comfortable manner because it's
Right.
alien to us. What I've seen a lot is that there is a baggage with one of the partners with regards to a really poor financial history, which
Mhm.
means that then the credit ratings aren't good, and therefore the whole goal of getting on the property ladder is derailed because, well, there's
Right.
stuff that you haven't communicated clearly first and foremost, stuff that you in most cases have been swept under the rug, not really addressed, and
Yeah.
you need, you know, lending or borrowing facilities to get on your first. house, so property ladder, that becomes an issue. And oftentimes, the partner who doesn't know about this doesn't find out until the very, very last second. And
Yeah,
I've always found that that
yeah.
is very problematic and has it causes massive rifts with couples a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think like we hear the statistic all the time, right? A lot of statistics say how finances and money is one of the biggest reasons why couples get divorced, why they break up, and that negatively affect the relationship, right? And
Hmm.
it is honestly because there's so much shame attached to it. It's insane how much how uncomfortable we are about finances, no matter if we're good with it or we're not so good with it, right? And a lot of us, we grow up not talking about finances, right? That our parents take care of it, but you never really know what's going on. And when you bring that into a relationship, this attitude of like, this is something I need to figure out, this is something I need to deal with on my own, you misunderstand that it's a partnership. So your debt becomes their debt, right?
Hmm.
Your gain becomes their gain. And I think that's where a lot of couples need to do more work. They need to be more comfortable talking about finances prior to even getting into a very like serious commitment such as marriage.
Mm. That's a really good point. One thing that I think people don't often realize is that when you, it's certainly here in the UK, when you move in with somebody and you've got
Mhm.
your name on the bills with somebody, often people don't realize that there's a financial, we call it a financial association. So
Yeah,
anything the other person does from a not paying bills or being late, that actually reflects on you as a partner. And that
yeah,
is magnified, particularly when you get married. So if you could, I could have a
right.
perfectly good credit score and be great with money. If my partner had been, missed payments, late payments, had a load of debt, that is going to drag down my score, which means that collectively we're unable to maybe achieve the things that we actually want to. But I guess the question for you,
Right.
based on what you've talked about there, is, you know, when is the right time to have that conversation with someone? I mean, people will argue, where do you have it whilst you're dating? How far into dating? Or is it one that you should have literally right before marriage, where a few years might have
Mhm.
gone by, financial,
Yeah.
really poor financial habits like we've already spoken about, like a ton of debt have already been there.
Mhm.
When's the right time?
I think the right time to talk about finances in a relationship is when you start talking about a future together in
Mm,
relationships, right? And that could be that doesn't really you don't really have a time frame for that because it depends. Some couples may get married or may start talking about marriage within 3 months of getting to know each other, right? And if you're starting from scratch and you don't know this person, then yes, the moment they talk about a future together, maybe just moving in together, those conversations need to be brought up before you sign the dotted line. And I think I mentioned it the last time in on the podcast. One thing that I experienced personally is that the best time to talk about finances is when you're in good spirits, when it's a positive conversation.
hmm.
Don't wait until there's a reason to talk about it, such as suddenly people are like bill collectors are on your door, or because you found out that he didn't pay for a car note or something. Talk about it as you grow in the relationship, right? It's very easy to bring out money when it's good. Like you can figure out how people save. Do they invest, right? Do they or you can talk about what was finances like back in your childhood with your family. I'm very fortunate in Germany. We do not have that big issue of student loans and debt. So
Mm.
most of us, we don't have debt leaving school. But in the US and even in the UK, it's such a big topic. So you need to know, okay, how much student loan do you really have? How much have you paid off already? What is your plan moving forward? Um, and those are conversations you can start small. You don't have to talk about them every week, but I definitely suggest that those need to be brought up once you're talking about a future together of
Mm.
any sort.
Mm. You know what? I'm looking at a comment here. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to put this up. This is actually from my brother. This is my immediate
Mhm.
brother. He has basically said relationships are trust, mutual understanding, and truthfulness. Money is a complement
Yeah.
in a relationship. How do
Mhm.
you view that in today's society when it feels like money is money carries a lot of weight in today's society? Like if you're not doing certain things, you're not earning a certain amount, it feels as though if you're in that, and I can only say that from just looking at social media and looking at comments and some of the sentiments out there, it feels like that is a huge pressure at the minute, that you've got to be at a certain level, that you've got to be
Yeah.
doing this or doing that. How do you view that? Because money should be a complement in a relationship.
Yeah. Are you saying it's a huge pressure for men or in general?
I can speak from a man's point of view and say I think it's a huge question for men, but I guess really, what does it what's the female perspective on that? Do you feel
What's
women feel the financial pressure as much as men do as well?
um good question. I think it depends, right? I don't think women have to feel the financial pressure of providing in a relationship as much. So therefore, right, they can approach the dating scene a little bit more relaxed, I want to say, because as women, we are generally or naturally on the receiving end of financial spending, I guess, especially in a dating place. But for me personally, and something that my ex partner and I talked about a lot, was when you want to, support someone in a relationship, then it becomes a burden if your finances are not in order, right?
Mm,
Because the number one thing that honestly is at the root of any breakup, discussion, challenge in a relationship is not feeling good enough. So what you will find a lot of times is that women who have a financial history that is not, that they don't feel good enough to date someone who has a financial history that like has a financial education and is really good with money, because you feel ashamed that you feel like you can't meet them, and you don't deserve them in a way. So
mm.
do we feel the pressure of coming in with a lot of money in order to provide or in order to spend on the other person? I don't think so, but I feel like if there is some sort of discomfort, yes, then there is pressure to measure up.
Mm. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting to hear on that point, because I think from a men's point of view, it's like, yeah, I mean, we can go back to traditions, which I think traditions often they change through the decades and through the years. I think we're at a point where maybe traditions start to move in terms of like gender roles and all that kind of stuff. We're seeing those move a little bit there, but off the back of the podcast, someone actually said, well, actually, something that perhaps isn't spoken about a lot in today's age is actually the evolutionary aspect to it, and that
Yeah.
is the and again maybe it feeds a little bit into tradition, in the fact that men have always been deemed to be the ones who go out to provide. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we're at that point in society now where I think women earn a lot of money and are able to do as much as they are currently. How do you navigate that if that in your reality it's like, actually, hang on a second, because stay at home dads are a thing right now. Like there are
Yeah.
I know a stay at home dad actually, and he's more than happy to do that. It's a
Yeah.
really, really interesting kind of like balance to make.
Yeah. I think that is the that is where a lot of these conversations nowadays that I personally don't enjoy come in, is where people now are trying to navigate the dating scene in not swapped roles, but in somewhat roles that are right equal. And I think they are. I think, yeah, women and men, we're equal. I don't think that is a big discussion anymore. However, roles transcend so much more than just economic power, right? They
Hmm.
transcend to how it makes you feel being in a specific role. So with especially in the Black community, when women tend to earn more, we've seen this idea that a woman who makes six figures can't date anyone who doesn't make six figures. The
Hmm.
problem is, percentage wise, there aren't as many partners they would desire to date that make that kind of money. So now, they find themselves in that struggle per se. So I feel like, and that's again, that is very, very specific to me. I was born in Europe. I have a very different idea of what money means to a relationship than a lot of people that I meet. Is that your income not shouldn't matter, but your income is something like your brother said that complements the relationship. If you go into the dating scene thinking that your income is what gives you leverage or what gives you power, then you are kind of building the relationship on it, right? So for the people who only date based on money, something that can be taken from you so quickly,
Hmm.
they often find themselves in a relationship that really has no other foundation.
Yeah.
And especially for women, I think it has started to really backfire, right? This idea that, oh, I can't date a man that makes less than me because who do I look like? Well, now you find yourself getting older and older and older, with less options because you turned your back on good people who made a stable, comfortable income that could very much provide for the family.
I think that goes both ways, though. I think that goes
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same way for the men who are, I know a number of people who do very, very well and are
Mm-hmm.
not afraid to show it. And I think you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something that was really important there. Like that could be taken away, boom, just like that. You have
Right.
poor financial management, you have an accident, you're unable to work for whatever reason, that stuff gets taken away. Then
Mm-hmm.
once all of that is gone, who are you? What do you actually then offer beyond
Right.
the financial
Mm-hmm.
ability to provide and stuff? And this is what I think often gets missed in a lot of the conversations that I see online. It's a little frustrating for me because I'm like, okay, we're talking about all the financial, the money side of things and the aspirations of, oh, you got to be here for me to date at this level. And, I'm not going to look at any one part who doesn't earn this much. And I've been in situations, I used to work in Canary Wharf. There were some girls in the office who would not date anyone if they weren't, £60,000 upwards. It's like, that's
Mm-hmm.
all very fine. But what about the person? What about the
Right.
person? What
Mm-hmm.
do you like the person? Is that person a good person, or is it simply just
Right.
the numbers attached to the paycheck every month?
Hmm. And I think that's the biggest part. Is like we're having all these conversation about women being hypergamous and men being the provider and have to be the provider and all these things. But do you really like this person? And that's why, right, the dating pool gets so small because you don't just want a six-figure person, but you also want a person that can actually match, right? That
Hmm.
actually fits. And I think we're seeing a lot of that go left now because there are so many high power or celebrities who have helped that stereotype, right? Go ahead with Birkin bags and
Mm.
Lamborghinis and everything being gifted to them, and then it turns out that the relationship was shit, basically. So then what do you make of it? Once you realize, okay, well, they can afford all this and they can provide all this, but they're not the person I would want to be with.
Mm. Yeah,
And I think that has gotten lost in that conversation.
yeah. So, interesting. So here's a question because I pay attention to a lot of this, especially since I got mistaken for Kevin Samuels. And actually, joke persons just said this in the comments as well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Kevin Samuels will sit here in a tank top with his hat back. He's normally suited.
Would not. Nope.
I don't get me wrong. I could do that, but not in this weather at all.
Right.
But yeah. So ever since obviously I got mistaken for him, and I had a whole issue on social media for a while because people thought I was him, and I got a load of hate for a period of time. And I followed him and some of the stuff that he actually says, but not not focusing specifically on him. I also follow some other people. So there's a couple of other people that I know who are actually local to me, financial stuff,
Mhm.
Marissa, and her show, and she got into a conversation around, okay, so from a woman's point of view, is it more about the ambition and the attitude of the man rather than the earning potential, because the ambition and the attitude means that you have the ability to potentially provide more
Exactly.
in the future. And I thought
Yes.
that that was a really important point because I think, well, certainly on social media and the stuff that I've been seeing, that hasn't necessarily been the thing. Because look, not everybody earns well to start off with. I wasn't earning well
Mhm.
10 years ago. Like, no way. Like, everybody has a journey and a transition into, their best earning years. Some people may
Mhm.
take advantage of it, others don't. But surely it's the ambition and the potential, really, from a relationship point of view, that should be the key ingredient that
Yeah.
kind of cements your chemistry and your goals moving forward.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that we have really misunderstood what protect and provide means. And I think I can speak to 2 points. When I think of my future husband, my future family, the lifestyle that I envision, it's important to me to know the person can protect and provide because I see myself stepping out of the workforce for a time,
Hmm.
right? In order to be able to raise children, be in the home, anything of that sort. Maybe later on, parents will join and you take care of them. I think that is what we meant in the past, especially when women were not working.
Hmm.
Then the other thing is exactly what you said. I don't believe that you have to attach a number, or an income level to protect and provide because there are amazing men somewhere in India, somewhere in Hungary, somewhere in parts of the world where six figures is not the norm, where six figures is for them a millionaire, and they are protecting and providing for their families. So you can't tell me that unless you make six figures, you ain't worth anything. And at the same time, what I say is that friends friends of mine who speak like that, when I talk to these women, I say, unless your current lifestyle is a six-figure lifestyle, you have no business wanting a man who makes six figures. If your lifestyle is a six-figure lifestyle, I understand. You're trying to think strategically about what can I afford once I have a family if my man doesn't make as much as me. But we have a lot of women out here making less than 50K with the same exact expectations and totally ruining their chances in dating.
That's interesting. I mean, if I were to play devil's advocate on that, many people will argue and say, well, surely I have the right to want to aspire to a certain lifestyle
Yeah.
and marrying well, which I kind of get that. I do. But at the same time, it's like, in the UK, if we look at the numbers, if you're earning over 50K or something like that, you're in the top 10%. If you're earning something like 70K, then you're
Same
going
in Germany.
70, £80, you're going to be in the top 5%. The minute you start getting to 100,000 plus, you're in a very, very small minority. Now, the issue that I have with that is that now what you're doing is you are giving all the guys in that sphere all of the game power, essentially, because they are inundated with options, which further then perpetuates the stereotype of the player, right?
Right.
Because these guys have so many options out there that,
Yeah.
well, what they're going to do, they're guys, they're going to be very selective in how they go about their business. I've got a friend at the minute who's doing very, very well in music, and it's crazy. He tells me
Yeah.
stuff and I'm just like, wow. It's crazy. But it's, you look at society and you have to question sometimes, like, the numbers that you're looking to get into, that rank you're getting into, is very, very, very small and very, very selective. And it doesn't, for me, it almost means that everybody else below that, or every guy below that, is worthless almost. That's what it
That's
almost
my
comes
problem.
across as. And we're talking
Yeah.
about human beings here.
That's exactly my problem. It's like, so you want to tell me the teacher, the counselor, anybody is worthless just because they don't make six figures? I have a very big problem with that idea. And yet I agree with you. I never tell women they can't desire what they desire. If you want a six-figure man and you have a good reason for it, absolutely go for it. But you have to understand not the competition, but what it means. And like we said before, how small that dating pool is.
Mm.
How small is that dating pool and how much you're limiting yourself. Are there a lot of women who will still go for it and be successful? Absolutely, and that's great. All I'm saying is that going into the dating scene, desiring this off the bat when you have no business being up there, that is a lot of times very hurtful for people.
Mm. Th-
Okay.
There is a comment in here. I think. Let me have a look. I think this is a two-part from Lucy. I'm going to just put this up here. She kind of says, I do agree women don't feel the pressure to have lots of money, but I also feel that in most cases these days, men tend to date someone in the same level or better for those don't have that ego. Okay, right. And then the second part here is she was saying, my preference would be someone as accomplished as I am or better, but in some cases with someone with really good values and is kind, fun, and loving, it won't really matter. I think that really speaks a lot to it. I mean, I don't think that necessarily guys really don't care, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
this is where guys become really, really simple. The last thing that goes through a guy's mind is how much does she earn? That's not even anywhere on the radar. Like for most guys, if it turns out that you actually earn really, really well, we're like, okay, cool, she's doing her thing. But it does not mean a thing.
Right.
If there are men who think like that, they are a very, very, very small minority.
Yeah.
Because again, this may be ego and the way that we're brought up as we need to provide. We need to be the ones who go out and actually look after, the income so we can provide from it. So I don't necessarily think that men tend to, or a lot of men, majority of men tend to only look at women at a certain level. Maybe at celebrity status, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Like a lot of times when I talk to men about this topic, about this conversation, or even if you look at the Kevin Samuels content that I try not to look at, it's very clear, and I think that's one of the cornerstones he tries to explain to women is that we don't care for how much you make. We care for what you look like. And I think that's also what I try to explain to women as well. And yes, we can call it superficial and we can be upset about it. But at the end of the day, this is how we have been groomed and taught to think for hundreds of years is that as a woman, find a man who can protect and provide. As a man, find a woman who will make you look good. Does that mean she needs to look good? She needs to be able to look after you, and she needs to be able to maybe in I don't know, like golf kind of upper class. It means it's a woman with a name. She doesn't necessarily bring the money with her, but people know her family. So
Mhm.
that's why I think a lot of women, they feel almost upset when they see men who are playing in their league go for someone who is not in their league. Because now they're wondering, why is he going for her? She's a waitress. If I'm making as much as him and I look good as well and all these things. But what she missed is the fact that he didn't care for how much she was making. He cared for how she made him feel.
Mm. You made a really interesting point on the last podcast that I have to circle back to because you said it and I was like, holy crap, actually, you're true. You made the
Yeah.
point about the whole Disney and all of the fairy tales that we've ever watched and listened to as kids. It all literally has one theme in common. And you are so right with every single one of them. Do you want to reshare that? Because I thought that was brilliant.
You have to remind me exactly what I said. I think it's the damsel in distress.
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, in every single Disney movie, and not even that, it's so many more movies, right? We're always taught that a man is gonna come to our rescue, right? A man is gonna, like, oh, I remember what I said. Okay, so it's the idea that women were not able to break into a new class. So all of the Disney princesses, for some reason, they were a princess, but like as children, they were basically became a commoner, or they were a commoner from the get-go, but the man always basically gave them a new status, a new rank, right?
Hmm.
And they just happened to be extremely beautiful, and none of the princesses in his court were able to compete with this person.
Hmm.
So here you see, he doesn't care for like what social status she has. He only cares that she's extremely attractive and, makes him feel great. And
Mm.
she happens to be elevated to a new social status.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, I was like, actually, you know what? That is so true because you can see it
Yeah.
in so many Disney kind of like cartoons and stuff like that. You're just cycling through
And
some of this stuff. You can
yeah,
see
and
that.
it's very important also to remember that back in the day, a lot of times that was not heard of. Like that wasn't possible. People would have to marry, right, in their social circles in order to protect their wealth, in order
Mm.
to grow, their land and all these things. So for women, of course, the only way to basically level up back then was by marrying someone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to. There was. Is this a question? I just hang on a second. I'm just trying to figure out whether this is a question from Delight here. Hey Delight, how you doing? I know that you said hello earlier, so hey, how you doing? And I know that Raphael. Let me just bring this up. If you're watching this in Brazil, Jesus Christ, okay. Thank you for watching from Brazil. It's international right here. Okay, so let me see. Is this? I don't know whether this is a question or not. I think this may be just be a statement. Married and living as a joint family. How do people feel about this? I mean, is this something? I think it's common now, isn't it? Really, because of the traditional shape of the family and relationships have changed massively over the last probably decade or two. It's
Yeah.
huge. I mean, I guess that's a common thing, right? I guess. What are your thoughts?
So what exactly is the question? You're married
Yeah, so
or
the question is married and living as a joint family. How do people feel about this? Delight, let us know if there's a question behind that, by the way. I know that you've said on here as well that this is common in South Africa, South Asian culture and some European culture. But if there's a question, just put it in a question for us. We can have a look at try to get to the bottom of that and give it some views if you can, please. But yeah, I find it really, really fascinating. So, in terms of what you do and the coaching side of things, or that you do on a day to day basis at the moment, do you think that there are any common themes or any common kind of like struggles that people face in the dating scene at the minute, apart from the obvious things?
Yeah, I focus on mostly women, right? And like the struggles that they come across. I think a really big one that I'm seeing, unfortunately, with men is this idea of FOMO, is this idea of I need to keep dating because there could be something better on the other side,
Hmm.
right? Because this idea that when you swipe, you just keep swiping and you don't know what's gonna appear next. And that's also, that is part of why these apps are built that way. Because just like with Instagram, you get an endorphin rush every time you scroll,
Hmm.
right? And every time that Instagram app comes, like, has a new feed for you. So for men, a lot of times what I see now, and obviously I can't generalize, it's probably for women as well, they keep swiping. They have a hard time deciding to stay with the person and investing, because a lot of people don't understand is that love doesn't come in the first 3 dates.
Hmm.
That's usually when people are like, oh, we went on 3 days, she's not exciting, let me keep swiping. People
Hmm.
don't understand that actually the hormones that you build, right, such as oxytocin and everything, they happen over time by investing. And that's the funniest thing ever, is that men, they they actually create the hormones that they need in order to love another person by investing in the other person. But what I see a lot of times now is that this investment is taken away because they're like, oh, 3 dates, let me move on, let me move on, let me move on. So I'm seeing that happen a lot. That a lot of people are, yeah, have this grass is greener on the other side syndrome,
Hmm.
not understanding that if they would just water the grass where they are, this could be a beautiful garden.
And that is down to social media, though, isn't it? It's just the fact that
Oh,
there is just it's so easy and
yes.
people put so much out there, and it feels as though what social media has kind of done is like if I was single and I went out in London, I would have to
Mhm.
go to one bar. My pool are the people in that bar. What social
Yeah.
media basically does is it puts you in London with everybody in London
Right.
within a 25-mile radius. So it's just like
Yeah.
there's so much, there's so many people. Who's next? Who's next? Who next? And I think that's one of the downfalls of social media in the fact that when you think about instant gratification and you think
Yeah.
about that instant rush, it does not cultivate long-term views. And I see that a lot in what I do when I talk about investing and so forth. It's all about instant gratification. What's happening right now? Does this fit the moment right now? Not. What happens in 6 months, in a year's time, in 2 years' time? It doesn't really cater to that.
Right. That's exactly what it is. It's that instant gratification and having such a bigger pool of people that you can meet overnight, literally.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you feel that, from a female's point of view, d on the dating side, you mentioned it obviously swiping right, and the grass is greener on the other side. Do you think that there's an element of that for women when they're on these dating apps as well, constantly having to feel that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think women, we are very quick to invest into someone that we're with. But I do think that one thing that has affected women a lot when it comes to social media is this comparison, is this idea of her boyfriend does this. Why is he
Mm.
not doing it? And even with a lot of
Mm.
the content I
Yeah.
share, with a lot of the content that I share, people will read one quote and immediately decide, oh, he's not doing this, so he isn't good for me. But forget all the other stuff that he has already invested, how he has shown up and everything. There are I like to structure my blog posts and a lot of my content as 10 things, 10 steps, 10 signs. But the reality is, there are not just 10 signs to the one. There are a million signs. But people will see these 10 signs and be very quick to, you know, act on it. And I think that's what women tend to do a lot. We tend to look at somebody else's highlight reel and compare it with our reality.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You said something earlier, which is still, it's been in my head for the last few minutes, and I'm just like, actually, that's very, very true. You're talking about men create that feeling of when they invest in you. That is so true, and I've never really thought of it that way, because it takes us a period of time to be like, okay, we're going to do this now. And that decision making process to actually decide, okay, maybe now it's time to do this, or it's time for me to do the X or Y or Z.
Yeah.
That is a big decision for a lot of men, a huge decision, like moving in together, huge decision. And that is investing into it. And
Yeah.
I never really thought about it about that, but that's actually very, very true.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's something that men think about the investment so much more than we do, right? We're very quick to overextend ourselves to meet the other person's need, while men, it's annoying, but they will take way more time. And then when it's done, it's so much more, it has much more weight than the same action on a woman's side. Like for me, moving in together, it's like, okay, let's move in together. While for guys, like, my life is over. So, right, yeah.
Yeah, we laugh, but that is so true. It is so, so
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Most
Yeah,
men
because they're
try.
thinking about all these nights they will not be able to go out with their friends or whatever,
Yeah,
and we're just, this is gonna be
yeah,
great.
that is so
Mission
true.
quick.
That is so, so true. All right, listen. So let me just open up really quickly because we've been on for 50 minutes right now. Let me just see, guys, if you're watching this, you have questions or you have anything that you want to ask. Now would be the time to pop your comments into the comments box, and we'll try and get to some of them literally right now. I'm just scanning through the chat right now. There's a whole conversation going on about living with in-laws
Yeah.
after marriage. Um, someone said here, "You're brave, you're brave, mate," is what I've heard there. So carry on with that. That's really, really good. Someone's saying that I can see disadvantages and advantages to living with in-laws. Is there a question here from Lucy? Let's have a look. Oh, this is a good one. I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this, but you might have a view. How much assets or wealth does one need to have to think about protecting them before getting married? This is prenup kind of like talk.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
do you come across this at all in what you do, and is as a question that people ask?
No. I do not come across this question at all, but I do, and I think it's great that Lucy asked that question, because I do think that is one of the women on the receiving end of prenups a lot of times, right? Like, I think we can not all agree, but I think that's what we hear most of the times. So that's why women will think about it less. But I do actually believe it is a valid question. I think it's a valid topic. And I think it's smart. I'm not saying it because I don't believe that marriage is forever, but I just think that everything needs to be discussed while you guys are in good terms. And I learned this from a show called The Real a few years ago, where this
Hmm.
lady, she said, before you get married, talk about the hard topics. Put up a prenup because you are talking about things that are so important to you while you're in good spirits. Because once things go left, you wish you had a prenup in order not to be fighting back and forth, right? Because if you create that prenup before you get married and you're so excited, everything in there is going to be in both people's favor. When you get divorced and he did you wrong, you will not try to look out for him. So I think I personally believe it's a good idea, especially if you have assets that are, belong to your family or belong to you, like let's say a brand name or something. And at the same time, do I know how much you need to help in order to protect yourself? Not really. I don't think I'm there just yet.
I would agree with what you just said there. I think, from what I've done in my career, prenups are always a conversation that most wealthy people think about and
Yeah,
absolutely have.
yeah,
And these things are ironclad, wrapped up with clauses. If you do this, and we've been married for this long, this is what I get. If you do
absolutely.
this, and we've been married this long, this is what
Yeah,
I get. If we
yeah,
have kids and you do this, this is what you get. It's all very much tied up. But the whole point of this is that both people feel as though they'll be protected in the event that that something goes wrong. Like nobody ever
right.
wants to, get married under the assumption that you're going to get divorced one day. But the reality is that people do get divorced. And
Yeah,
actually, for wealthy people, the divorce rate is huge. It's massive because at
yeah,
the end of the day, to them, it's not about the wealth. It's not about the material things. They are leading a very, very different kind of lifestyle and a very different life depending on how they're set up. So
yeah.
it is something that they think about. And I've seen cases, divorce cases, where there was no prenup go horribly wrong. And there are things that people
Yeah.
will do that you just wouldn't think. Like I've had situations where I've witnessed cases where the husband knew that he was going to break up, was planning it for 2 years. Two
Oh
years.
yeah.
Very wealthy
I
guy. Very wealthy guy. He started diluting a lot of his assets and putting them offshore in places where it cannot be found, and then
yeah,
sprung it on one day and said, "I want to get a divorce." That's it.
yeah,
And that goes to litigation, and then everything comes out that actually no, he's been planning this for 2 years, and it gets strung out because now you have to come to an agreement because you didn't have a prenup involved. So I think if
right.
you if you're the kind of person where it is a concern for you, absolutely think
Yeah.
about having that
I think
conversation.
I think what I see a lot for women is that women get upset, right? If a prenup is brought into the conversation because it feels like you're already planning for the end.
Hmm.
But I think where we miss is that a prenup is crafted by both people. So if you go in and saying, I'm protecting myself, right? Then it shouldn't be a problem because when you are in love, you should want the other person to protect themselves as much as they
Hmm.
should want for you to be protected in the event of something going wrong. So yeah, I think that's very important, very valid.
Awesome. Right. I'm looking at the chat here. There's some very interesting comments in
Amazing.
here. To be honest, I'm looking at this one. I'm thinking, I don't know if we want to open that kind of worms and go down this path because there is so much. It's a very, very broad subject and it's filled with opinions and stuff. But at the same time, for me, I look at it at a very different way. And the fact that, at the end of the day, if you talk about feminism, women have rights. Women have rights to want to aspire to certain things, and they can't just always. You can't have traditions and culture, trump the rights of what people have or what people aspire
Right.
to. Just because it was a certain way in 1950s and 40s, it's
Yeah.
2021. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
we
Yeah.
need to be careful. But that in itself is a
The
huge,
big
huge
one.
topic. It's a massive topic, and I see in the Kevin Samuels and a lot of other content that's out there at the moment. There's this talk of, okay, so feminism is okay, and it's a can of worms in terms of, okay, so if we want to talk about feminism and its equal rights, okay, but where does it become equal, and at what point do we say actually it's not equal based on traditions, based on all of
Mhm.
evolutionary and men having to be providers and the gender roles. It's such a big area to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. It is. And honestly, I stay away from the topic a lot as well because I do feel like it's emotionally charged. And
Mm,
I think we tend in the Western world, we tend to talk about it very much emancipated as women, right? But the reality is feminism looks very different in every country,
yeah,
right?
sure.
It looks very different because traditions have played a different role. Um, so I do find it an interesting topic, but yet I find that people bring their own personal emotions into it without seeing the bigger picture of what it really means.
Hmm.
Like very specifically, like the definition as it is in a dictionary usually has nothing to do with dating.
True. Very, very true. Really, really true. All right, cool. So it's almost an hour now. Before we leave, please tell people where they find you, your socials, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and my personal blog, and it's all the same. JustineMfulama.com. I post mostly about dating and relationship. Like I said, I will sprinkle a little bit of motivation and inspiration into my content from time to time. And yeah, I really share about dating phenomena and a lot of like relationship patterns that people are trying to break. So if that's anything that interests you, yeah, definitely find me here on YouTube. I think that's the easiest, Justine Fulama, and see you there.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to to
Thank
do this, because
you.
I know that. What time is it in Mexico right now?
It's 3 p.m. almost 3 p.m.
Okay, cool. Right, so
Yeah.
we've got a little bit of a time difference. To be honest,
Right.
we tried to do this 2 times before. The first time was England v
Yes.
Germany, and I was
Finals.
like, no, everyone's
Ugh.
going to be watching football. We're not going to do that. And then
Right.
last week, I was in London, and I got caught on set doing a live show for someone. And I completely forgot. I was rushing around thinking I need
Right.
to get home, and then I saw your message, and I was like, "Oh my god, no!" So this is the third time lucky doing this, but I do appreciate you being
Yay,
really,
you
really
made it.
patient with
I'm glad.
me and coming on. And you're on my podcast, the Conversation of Money podcast. You're also going to be on the Tap Into Extraordinary podcast as well. We'll let you know when that
Yes.
episode goes out live. But thank you so
Awesome.
much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And thanks everyone who's actually joined as well. I haven't done a live, it feels like, for a while because I've just been really, really busy. I will do more. We will talk about more broader conversations like this one where finances are related. And we'll also still do the stock market, stock picking, investing live streams as well with guests, as we've always done. But I appreciate you, particularly if you're in the UK on this hot summer's evening when you
Wow.
could be at a barbecue. So thank you so much. And Justine, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Catch you later on.